So I will get to that in just a minute. First, I wanted to just kind of talk about what we're going to talk about today, just to give you an intro of everything that's going to be in here. So Code and Coffee, this is our second meetup. That's a new chapter. I've got a slide here coming up next that'll talk more about it. So first we'll go over Code and Coffee, then Pinecone, which is the AI tool that I'm using for this today. And I want to talk about their Pioneer program, which is a part of their developer community where they recognize people that are active in the community, and they're sponsoring today's event. And then I'm going to do an overview of vector stories, and I want to kind of like give everybody a quick primer if it's totally new to you, or just a refresher before we start building with it, so it kind of makes more sense. What is this tool we're using? Why is it useful? What would you do with it? So before we get into the actual workshop, I wanted to kind of just talk about the technology. And then for the workshop, we're going to create an assistant using Pinecone and add our own files to the vector storage. So your own personal files, so it can answer questions that ChatGPT doesn't have access to. Something that's it could be like invoices, emails, whatever you want to use. And I have a sample file. If you don't want to upload anything, personal, that's yours. But that's kind of the whole point, is that you're giving it this extra data to answer questions that ChatGPT couldn't do on its own. And then we're going to chat with that assistant through the terminal and through the REST API. And so this enables you to start building your own applications that have those AI features and that have access to your data to answer those questions. Whereas with ChatGPT, they do have an API, but with theirs, you have to sign up for a paid plan and give them your credit card. So you can't really build an AI app using their API for free. And with Pinecone, you can. So that's one of the reasons I've chosen it for today. And then we're going to look at how to bulk upload a bunch of Google Docs from a certain folder. Bulk upload them all to the Pinecone assistant so you could process the whole folder. And this is like a really simple use case. It's basically a piece of a lot bigger app. And I wanted to give you kind of a starting point. So if you wanted to automate always monitoring a certain folder and having your AI always know about what's in there, it could be, say, PDFs that come in an email, and you've got a workflow that saves things there. So it's a good starting point to build stuff like that. Last month, I think I went a little too in depth. I had a bigger plan and we didn't finish everything. So with this month, what I'm doing is I'm showing you lots of different ways to get started with Pinecone, and then you can take it from there and build on the REST API and JavaScript. You can use the Google Docs version that we're going to try it and build it in Python. So I'm basically just going to show you a lot of different ways to get started, and then you can build on whichever one you're more comfortable with. All right, so Code and Coffee, this is our second meetup. It is a national nonprofit with 50,000 developers and 40 chapters, and we are the 40th chapter. We're the newest one and the only one in Florida, first one. And they provide support for local meetups like ours. They also have sponsorships. Today's is from Pinecone, the AI agent tool that I'm using. And they also are more focused on networking, workshops, mentorship, and job searches. So Code and Coffee specifically, their events are usually in person and about learning something or a job search. Whereas the other two meetups that we have, I've got a few more slides. They're a little more social and networking and hanging out after work. So different format, but that is the meetup link if you want to join this group, Code and Coffee. And they have hosted over 1,000 events in over 200 cities. There's only the 40 chapters, but they have kind of branched out to start hosting events in bigger cities as well. And they've given out over $200,000 in scholarships. They just got a $25,000 scholarship from, or grant from Microsoft. And then the CEO and the founder of Code and Coffee, I've met him a few times, and he's the one that, asked me if I'd start up a chapter here. And they figure out how to allocate that money. And by having people join the meetup and having the numbers and showing how many people are coming to their events, that helps them get more of those donations. So it does help if you can join the meetup, and just for them to be able to show how many people and how active these groups are. They also sponsor our meetup pro plan, and that, that pays for us to be able to like message people and not have to pay extra to, to be able to send messages to the group or see who attended. Meetup has so many things that are gated on their paid plan, and so it makes it a little easier for us to communicate with everybody. That's the parent website, codeandcoffee.org. So if you want to see what the main group's about, that's their page is just informational. There's nothing to sign up for there. Whereas Global AI, which is one of the other groups that we have here in town, they actually have a meetup and a parent website to sign up on. Okay, so I am the chapter lead. I'm the head of developer relations for AppSmith. It's a low-code, open-source application builder. And I'm also a founder, freelancer. I started GreenFlux right here at Domi Station. I think it was this office, one of these two, about 10 years ago. Been a long time now. I don't exactly remember which one. And I'm a co-organizer for Global AI, which is another local tech meetup. That one used to be Tally AI meetup group, and Global AI is another organization with chapters all over. That one's actually global, whereas Code and Coffee is just US. And so I took that meetup and I applied, and I had it. It actually became a new chapter of Global AI. So that one's a new chapter on an existing group, basically. Tally Devs, that's the other meetup, and this one is the oldest. It's the largest of all the three local ones that we're involved in. But it's not a chapter of anything else. It's just it's a meetup, and it's open to all devs, all skill levels, and all programming languages, whereas the AI one is obviously more just focused on AI. So we've got 3 different ones, and the other groups here, Global AI, would meet the first Wednesday at Momo's on Pensacola, 6 p.m. The Tally Devs, they're on the third Wednesday at 6 p.m. at Momo's, so it's almost every 2 weeks. There tends to be maybe 3 weeks on the second half of the month there, in between meetings. And lastly, there is the Discord server. So we'd like to get to a point where we can get most of the people on the Discord, and instead of sending out meeting emails to 3 different groups and 3 different meetups, we'll have a central place, and there's different channels in the Discord for each group, but a central place to monitor instead of sending out 3 every month.
That's great.
Everybody done scanning? Okay. All right, so now we're gonna get into the actual content here. Before we do the workshop itself, I wanted to talk a little bit about Pinecone. So they are a vector storage hosting for AI knowledge bases. They give your AI extra data to reference, and it helps it answer questions better without it being public data, right? It's your own storage of data. They also have an API that allows you to build custom apps. So you could use their AI assistant right on their webpage, but that's really just to kind of test it and get a feel for what it's capable of. The real use case is to add those AI features to your application. And so you do that through their API, and they have a REST API and Python and several others. They also offer a bring your own cloud feature. So all of this data that you're uploading to have AI answer your questions better, that can live in your AWS or your Google Cloud. So it's still their product. You're going to run Pinecone in their AWS or Google Cloud, but it gives you more control of the data, and then you're not sending it off to somewhere you have no control over. And they're enterprise grade. They got all the acronyms: HIPAA, SOC 2, ISO, GDPR. So that's more about why a business would choose it. I wanted to just talk real quick about why I chose Pinecone for today's event. So they are the only vector storage and assistant with an API with a completely free plan. It's not a trial. It's you can use it indefinitely for free. There are usage limits, but it's not time limited. So as long as you stay within that, you can build something and effectively use it forever for free. And no credit card required. Google has usage limits, but to even enable an API key, you have to give them a credit card. So maybe you'll stay under the free limit, maybe you won't. And if you go over, they've already got your credit card. So that's one of the reasons I like using platforms like this, where it's actually free and no credit card. They've got excellent documentation and developer experience, and they just added a multimodal input to their agents, which means you can ask questions with uploading a PDF or a doc, markdown, text, or JSON. Um, that's multimodal input. It is not multimodal output yet. So if you wanted to draw a picture, go to ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever. The new Google Nano Banana is pretty crazy what it can draw.
Yeah.
All right, and so basically it works for most use cases on the free plan. That's why I chose Pinecone for today's. The other reason is that there's this program, Pinecone Pioneers. They are selecting certain people from the community that are active, that are building cool things with their product and teaching people about it. And before they made this program public, they reached out to a select few of us, asked us if we were interested in being part of the first cohort. And so I signed up. I was already pretty active in their community and had posted several tutorials. And so now I'm in this first class. We're kind of leading the charge on it and looking for other people that want to be in the next round. And then they'll send you some swag. They're supposed to be sending me a shirt, a few other things. And there's like promotional stuff they do. They put 3 or 4 of my blog posts in their newsletter that goes out to probably over 100,000. I mean, I'm just guessing, but they're massive. They have like thousands of customers signing up every day. So pretty cool way that they support their community. And one of the things that they do is offer a scholarship. So they recognize the individuals that are building stuff. They promote events like ours, and they donated $500, or they're going to anyway. They said this event would qualify. So with that 500, I went ahead and covered the cost up front and got this TV and installed it myself, and just finished doing the power strip and everything this morning. Because last month I was presenting to the whole room here on a little monitor, just for one person, but trying to show it to everybody. So yeah, it's a really cool thing that Pinecone offers for community events, and it's usually to cover like, food and drinks or whatever, like throw like a little party or event. But I used it to get us something permanent for the whole space, so it'll be here for all of our events now. So yeah, they were sponsoring the coffee. We thought about doing a lunch, but we had a real small turnout last month, and I think it'll grow to a point where we'll end up doing a lunch with it too. All right, so real quick, I wanted to show an example of some of the stuff that you can build with Pinecone before we get into actually what we're going to build today. So we pull up a few of these.
Just show all the first.
I will send you these links later if you want to look at it in more detail. I'm just going to kind of scan through real quick to show you what it's about. But this one is very similar to what we're going to do today, where I took a Google Drive folder and upload all of that data to the Pinecone Assistant so you can talk to it. But then this one's a little more in-depth, and it shows you how to use Google Colab, which is what we'll be doing at the end. And then you import a few Python libraries, set up your services so that it's connecting to the assistant, and then it just loops through and uploads all of the files. And this one's definitely got a lot more to it, some error checking and some stuff we're not going to do today. I've slimmed this down to a real simple example that we'll do at the end. So the second example I have here is actually something I'm probably going to end up adding to that Discord server that I just shared for everyone. So this is a bot that monitors a Discord server and then replies to users, and also can delete posts and ban members, and basically it checks for spam. So Railway is a service that lets you run Python code somewhere on a server. And there's some free ones, but they all tend to like go to sleep. It'll run, and then it shuts off, and it loses all its memory and resets. And you can run it on a timer once an hour, but every time it would start fresh and forget everything on the free ones. Railway is pay as you go, so it's not free, but it's really cheap. And if you use it minimally, we'll pay minimally. And so I set up a Discord bot using Python on a Railway server to monitor a Discord server. And there's a bunch of phrases it's looking for. And all of those rules are in a text file that I uploaded to the assistant. So very similar to what we're doing today, where you create an assistant, you give it some data, and then you ask it questions. Only in this case, the questions are coming from the community, from people that post in Discord. And then the bot sends that to the assistant, decides how to respond, or if this person should be banned or deleted or whatever. So that's one use case. And then the last one here, something I built recently, is a sidebar web chat. So I was constantly copying some text from a website, pasting that in to ask a question on Cloud Code or ChatGPT or whatever, and then coming back to whatever site or between two tabs. I realized like I could just go straight to asking the question if the AI is right here in this tab where I'm at. I don't need to select text and then leave this tab to go to the AI and then paste it and then get the answer and then come back to this tab. So I built this little sidebar that uses a Pinecone assistant. There's not much to it. It's just a little simple iframe based HTML with a couple buttons and a text input. But it sends the entire web page with your question. So you can just ask, summarize this page, and then by the time the assistant gets that question, it's scraping the whole page with it. So it automates that whole process of having to copy and paste and ask the question and then come back to where you're at. Okay, so that is it. That's the end of the examples there. I think we're just about to the actual workshop. There's another slide here. There's these three. Oh, right. We're going to do the quick intro on vector storage. So before we start building, I just wanted to do this refresher. So this is a visualization. It's a kind of a metaphor about how items are stored in a vector database. So you can see, I don't point it doesn't work on the screen there. You see boats and ships kind of close together. And then there's three different fruits over there, banana, apple, pears. They're all stored kind of close to each other, right? And it's represented in 3D. There's actually thousands of dimensions, so we really cannot visualize what that would look like. But if you narrowed it down to 3 dimensions, that's basically what's going on. Things are stored physically close to other concepts that are similar. And so if you asked a question about boats, you might find a document that's got the word ships in it, without it ever mentioning boats at all. It's still going to find it because it's a similar topic without it matching the keyword exactly. So it stores the information based on a concept or idea and then retrieves similar information to your question without needing to match those keywords. And it provides that data as extra context to an LLM so that it can generate a better response. So you ask your question, the AI does not immediately get it. In the middle, there's this retriever that says, here's the question, go see if anything looks similar. It retrieves that extra data, and then it sends it off to the LLM. Now that is a very oversimplified explanation of all this stuff, and there are a ton more terms that I could go into. There's so many more like technical terms and building up this piece and this piece to get to talking about how it all works. I think it makes a lot more sense. It's easier to understand this stuff if we start at the biggest, most important, like the transformative change that made this technology so powerful compared to the last generation, and then work backwards from there. And once you kind of understand what makes it so powerful and how the search is different, then when you're talking about the components that make that possible, it makes a little more sense when you start from that piece. So we're going to talk about how vector storage and search is so much better improved over the way we've stored and searched data in the past. But we're going to do it with memes. So we're talking about the history, the evolution of storage and indexing. This is based on a LinkedIn article that I wrote last year. And if you want to see the full version with all the text explanation, I'll send out the link later with the slides. But basically, I pulled out the memes and turned that just into a slide deck. So in the before times, we had to organize files into folders, and a file could only be in one folder at a time, so you had to choose wisely. That is a famous quote from Abraham Lincoln, if you don't recognize it. But that's how it was. You know, if you wanted to organize your files, you could maybe name them and have some pattern, like you know, if you're doing songs like the album and then the artist or whatever, things like that. But basically, it'd only be in one folder at a time. So, am I going to put this one in research or tech meetings, right? And then metadata period. Well, this was a huge improvement. It allows you to organize and search with tags. Excuse me. And it's as if the file is in multiple folders at once. So you can apply, you know, homework and research and science or whatever. And then later you don't remember exactly which tags. If you can remember one of them, it might help you find it, you know. So you don't have to have it exact. It's great for media. Does anybody old enough to remember downloading individual MP3s on like Napster, trying to build the full album and then manually edit all the metadata to make it look right, like it came to get there, right? So metadata and tags, great for searching, but it's actually like way more work. How much time did you spend filling it out and tracking all those MP3s, right? So much better as far as searching, but a pain. And how many tags? Which ones do you apply? Where do you stop? Some of the tags aren't as relevant, and then you're just wasting time. So knowledge graphs are the next step up. This is something that's way better for searching. It's like having, instead of multiple tags on one file, it's like having multiple files that are linked to each other. And that could be a full file or just a chunk of a file. A chunking is something we'll talk about here in a minute. But once all those files are linked, then you can view the entire set of documents and create this graph and see how they're related through the network of nodes, which are the files or the chunks, and then the edges are the relationships between them. And it works best with structured data or with unstructured data that you're going to pick apart and figure out, okay, here's a person, here's a location. So it has to be structured by the time it gets ingested into the database. And like I said, it can be full files or chunks. So knowledge graphs are a bunch of different items that are related because somebody said they are. It's a lot of work. They're very useful, but it takes a lot of work to classify all of that data and connect it. But with similarity search, the things are related because they just are. You just upload files and then you can start searching and talk to it. And it's going to find data that's similar to what your question is without using that exact keyword. And there's no work to get it there. You just upload it and let the embedding model, the text transformer, stores it in vector space, and it is able to search it, and it's takes all the work out of it. So I love knowledge graphs. They're very powerful, but they're also a ton of work to make them useful in the first place. You have to store things properly and categorize it, whereas with similarity search, it just works. So imagine you've got some data describing some tickets here for a support system. And similar to having tags that have scores or weights assigned to them. So here, the first ticket, you can see login issue and password reset are 0.9 and 0.8. So instead of it just being a tag that it either has or it doesn't have, it's binary. Here it has a numerical value assigned to it. And the second ticket, it's not really a login or password issue at all. It's more so a feature request on the mobile app. So imagine all of your data that you're uploading, it's being scored on all these different parameters. And there's actually thousands of them. 86 or 68 is a common number. It's a lot of multiples or exponents of like 256. And so basically it's going to take all of your data and turn it into an array of numbers, usually between -1 and 1. I've seen some other systems that do 10 or 5 or whatever, but there's usually a positive and negative range there. And it's how similar is the input data to parameter 1. 2, 3, 4 to 1,000, right? It's scoring it on all of those different sections at once. So chunking is a way that you can split up the data before you score it so that the score is more relative to that exact topic. When you split it into a single sentence and you get a score, and that score says it's about, say, football or whatever, right? Well, it probably is if it's only a single sentence. But then if you did an entire paragraph or a whole like story or whatever, it might still score at that, but then there's so many other things in there, right? Like it's water in a cow. So chunking helps you get better answers because the chunk that you got back is really relevant without any extra stuff. And you want to chunk files to accommodate the context window, like how much data it can hold. The token limit, which is more about how much it's costing you, and then there's performance and retrieval accuracy. So there's lots of reasons to chunk the data, and then there's lots of ways to chunk the data, which can be done based on length, like split it every X number of characters or words. You can do semantic splitting, which is looking for splits of paragraphs or header if it's markdown. Where's the titles and then the LLM, when you have an AI do the splitting, it's really looking for the logical splits, like where does it change topics. So in summary, this similarity search and vector storage, it's all just like tags with weights. It seems like magic, the way that it's able to answer questions and generate text, but it's really just everything that we uploaded and taught it was scored in this way. And then when you ask a question, it does the same thing with your question. It turns that into an embedding. And then it can compare the two and find all the data that's close to your questions. All right, that is it. We're done talking. We're going to get to the workshop now. We got just over an hour.
Can I ask a question? Sure. Yeah. With the tag or the plates, going back to the ticket example, how does it know like what the tags and weights are? Like how does it know if this is a feature request?
Mm-hmm. The text transformer that is receiving the incoming text, it converts it from human readable text to the numerical array, and each embedding model has their own method of doing it. The most basic ones are similar to like older machine learning. There's not a lot of routes or like paths or logic to it. But then there's newer ones that have what's called a mixture of experts. So the one model actually has lots of smaller models inside of it. And one is for English, and one's for science, and one's for whatever, right? But they're trained on a specific set of data, and then every word, actually every token has a numerical value. Trying to remember the number. Tokens, it's about 3/4.
Oh, so it'll do it based on the content though.
Yeah, so like, if you'd had 100 words, it might be 125 tokens or something. There's like, it's like 3/4 ratio basically. So the word is probably 1 token, but better could be 2. And then like something that's 3 or 4 syllables, it could still only be 2 tokens. So it's not exactly syllables, it's not exactly full words, it's somewhere in between, but there's this numerical value that's equivalent for every token. And so the text goes in, the numbers come out, and then the group of numbers become an embedding. And then when you ask a question, the same process happens, only they don't store your question. This is something I didn't understand at first, so I maybe had a misconception on. Your question still has to get turned into an embedding in order to compare it to the existing data and figure out what's close and whatnot, but it doesn't get stored in there with it, because you wouldn't want that to like, every time somebody asks a question, it's dumping it in there, and now that data starts coming back out in the answers of the next person, right?
Yeah.
So it vectorizes your question so it can become that numerical range, so it can compare it and find the answers, that would retrieve data that would go with it. But your question doesn't get stored. Okay, so I'm going to get a link ready so I can send everyone the Notion doc. I meant to make a short link for you ahead of time, but I didn't. If you don't have an account yet, go ahead and go to pinecone.io and create an account, and then download and install one of these REST API clients if you don't have it already. Postman is the most common. Insomnia is a great alternative that's also very popular. And then the newest one there, Yak, came out because Insomnia started requiring you to sign up and log in for certain features, which I wasn't real happy about either, because Insomnia used to be the free alternative that didn't have all the extra bloat. It's starting to get there, so I got 3 options. So if you want to get the account and one of those things installed, I'm going to make a short link here for Notion. Okay, so that is a link to the Notion doc that will save you a bunch of typing, so you can just copy and paste the examples. It also has links to the docs for a few of the things that we're doing, and I'll add links for that the LinkedIn slides if anybody wants that. So bit.ly/42GR or GXR V4. All right, is everybody caught there? Got an account, got the REST API client installed, and the Notion doc open. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is go to the PineCone dashboard and create an assistant. So on the left sidebar there, you'll see assistants. And you can create one and name it whatever you want. There's some examples here where we're going to be pasting in some code, and it's called example-assistant. So if you name it that way, you can copy and paste my code and it'll just work. If you change the name, you'll have to change it in the example code. So the first thing you'll notice is that you can type here in the chat and just start asking questions, but there's on the right side, there's settings, there's the files connect that shows you the code of how you would do this from your own app instead of through the website. And then there's the option to delete it there. So on files, you can either upload your own PDF text document if you have something handy and you want to chat and ask questions about your data, or in the Notion doc, I have a PDF file that you can add. It is at number 4 there, the office. So I wanted us to be able to ask some questions and make sure that the agent is actually referencing our file. I wanted to know that it's not just some information that happened to be available online and that it's actually getting it from this one private source, right? So I used ChatGPT to write a script for an unreleased episode of The Office. It's not out there online anywhere. Nobody should, be able to answer questions from this. And a cool thing I noticed when I was doing this, I asked it to generate the images too, which I knew that ChatGPT could do. And then I asked it to take the text and the images and turn it into a PDF file. And it did. It created a PDF file. And it did it by writing the code in Python that was needed to do it, which is really cool. So like, it didn't get my request and say, hang on, I will do it. It sent the code to my browser, and then it wrote the Python code, and then it built the PDF right there. And it embedded the images too. However, it could not embed all 3 images that it generated. It kept putting the same image for all 3. So it almost did it. It wrote the script, it created the images, it embedded and created the whole PDF and put images in it, but it just kept redoing the same image, and I finally gave up. So anyway, this has some questions. There's this data in here that we can ask questions about, and no other AI is going to have access. None would get it right. So just to kind of prove the point there and make sure it's pulling from our data. So you can upload that and then ask it something like, what happened to Krieg at the end of the unreleased Office episode? And you should get something that it's familiar with the text in this doc here. Whereas if you go ask that same question to ChatGPT, it's going to say, well, there's not an unreleased episode, One little quirk with Pinecone, I love them, but there's something with their assistant that kind of bugs. It will not work in the chat down here if you ask a question before you've uploaded the files. The whole point of their assistance is that it knows stuff that you can't get through ChatGPT, and so they built it to where like it's not ready to chat and accept questions yet until you upload a file. So if you try to ask the question first, you'll get an error. And once you've uploaded a file, you can start chatting with it right here directly, or you can have the same type of functionality added to your own app and chat through the API, through Terminal, or through Python. So once you've asked a question, we do the same thing here, and I'll paste in the question from over here.
Now, you, you, oh,
Okay, so at the end of the last episode of The Office, Creed asked the AI to make him disappear, and then it works. The next day he's gone, his desk is empty, there's no trace of him, and they're all wondering if it's a prank or the AI actually deleted him. So I didn't give it any direction on it. I just said make up an episode about AI, and it's actually pretty decent. It's kind of funny. So now that I've asked this question, if I go to the code, the Connect tab over here, you'll see it's showing you the exact API calls and the code that you would use to do this. And here it's showing Python. You can switch it to shell, and it'll show you how to do the same thing through the terminal, which we're going to do next. And so you can either copy this from right here and edit the file locally. You'll have to put in your API key, which we skipped, actually. So now that we've all chatted with it once, we want to chat with it through the terminal, but we need an API key. So go in your dashboard, go on the left sidebar here to API keys and create one. And you'll want to keep that open. Once they show you the API key and you go copy it, right? You can delete it later and you can view the ones that you've created, but for security, they won't show it to you again. So you want to make sure that you copy it down somewhere else or immediately like save it back to your app where you're using it. So once you have your API key created and you have uploaded a file, remember you won't be able to ask a question that fails if there's not a file uploaded yet. Once you got those two, then you can open up the terminal, and I have two different formats in the Notion doc that should work for Mac or Linux on the first one here. And there are line returns. On Mac it works. I'm pretty sure it works the same on Linux. The first line is your API key, line return. It's actually going to commit that into the terminal and add that value to the environment. And then it'll just go straight to the next command, which is the curl, and it'll use that and run the API. You'll see it in your terminal and actually respond right there. However, in Windows and PowerShell, the line returns screw everything up, and you can't paste it all in at once. So the Windows PowerShell version looks a little different. We got some variables that we're defining and building up the body and the header, and then the response. So maybe somebody more familiar with Windows and PowerShell can show me a better way of pasting a curl request, but I couldn't get it directly that way. So I'm going to copy the first one. And paste it into the terminal. Invalid key, right. So just like I told you a second ago, you have to put your API key in here. And I have it right here. I'm showing everyone my API key. So I will be deleting this as soon as we're done. So you can see the terminals. There it is. It took a second because it was still processing. And now it's not very readable, a bunch of JSON with no indentation or line returns in the terminal. Like that's not a convenient, easy way to read it, but you could see that it worked. And the cool thing about this is you can start to build stuff locally just using the terminal. Like you don't have to have a whole web app or a server to run it on. There's still plenty of things that you can do locally. I've done stuff where I'll have a folder of text files and I want to basically use them all as prompts. Like they're prompts that I've been like developing and iterating on, and I want to like run them all and save the responses back to another text file. So I wrote a short terminal command that says for all of the files in this folder, take each one and upload it as a separate prompt, and then save the response back to a new text file. And so if you've got workflows like that, I did a similar one with the input being a image. Take every image in this folder, describe it, and save the response to a text file. That's useful for like all image text on a website, so that's for readability or accessibility stuff. So tons of stuff you can do locally just with terminal or bash or Windows PowerShell or whatever. Was everyone able to get a response in the terminal? Yeah? Cool. Yeah. Okay, let's do the same thing from a API client now. I'm going to use Yak And if you go to create a new one, and then say that you want a new HTTP request, you can paste the curl request right there in the URL, and it will parse it out and split the URL from the headers, from the parameters and everything. It'll create it for you, or you can do them individually. You can type out each piece if you want. But I'm going to paste the same curl request that I did. I think it's going to fail because I got the extra lines at the top with the assistant daemon stuff. But if I copy just the curl request,
And a year back. It's just new.
there we go. So you see how I had multiple lines and it had all the JSON for the headers and stuff? Well, now it's in the header tab. So whenever you're working with API docs that show a curl request like that, and you want to use it in Postman, you don't have to type out the API, the URL separate and everything like that. If you do it right, you can just paste it in there and it's going to parse everything and put it into the rec fields. And you'll see a lot of those examples here in the docs. I'll try to find a good one. Here we go. So right here in the Pinecone reference, so you want to be at docs.pinecone.io and then go to the reference tab. And then on the reference tab, there's two main sections. We are only working with assistants today. The database one is where you're only storing data and you're going to use somebody else's AI to answer questions. We're using their AI, so the assistants part of the docs. And so then once you're in there, then there's all the different methods. You want to upload a file or have a chat or whatever. And the sidebar will show you like the API requests, and there's different versions for, for Python or Node or just the shell commands. So you can copy that straight into Yak and you should be able to get a response back there. Does that work for everyone as well? Does everyone done it through the REST API client?
So do it. Can you paste in the curl request with Postman as well?
Yeah, yeah, it should work in the URL. However, you will have to take the assistant name and the API key and put those in place right there. And you want to get rid of the $sign. That's just showing that it's a variable there. So remove the $sign and paste your API key. And then that should work in Postman too yet. And so both of these are using the REST API. When you do a curl request from the terminal, it's curl is a way of formatting those requests as a string. So the input itself is a string, but it's representing a whole bunch of stuff for the URL and the headers and the parameter and whatnot. And then the last way that we'll look at is through Google Docs using the Python SDK. So we'll use the API key still, but it's not using the REST API. That's over HTTP. We'll be using the Python one and doing it through Google Colab.
Very cool.
All right, so for the last section then, I have a link here in the Notion doc that goes to my Google Colab if you just want to copy it and you won't have to type anything, or you can create a blank one and copy and paste the sections, however you want to do it. But you want to go to collab.research.google.com to do a new one, or just make a copy of mine. Because you need to add your API key, and I have shared this publicly, but it's read-only. So you can't add your API key to mine, but you can copy mine, and then once you have your copy and it's editable, then you can add your API key. And that can be done right here on the left sidebar. So you see the little key for secrets. You'll want to add a new secret, name it Pinecone _ API _ key, all caps like that. And that has to match up with what you call it here in the code. So we're using userdata.get, and that takes values from the secrets here. So once you have your own copy of this so that you can edit it, then you add your API key. The first thing you want to do is run the first code block. And I have these split up into blocks so you can kind of debug it and test to make sure each step is working. You don't want to go straight into running the code part and you're wondering why it's not working, but it's because the library is not installed, right? So we'll install the libraries first, and the first time that you run this, you should see a lot of things that get installed. If you've done it before, it'll say that dependencies are met, and it's gonna ask me to refresh here. Certain libraries, it can't just activate them and start using it. It has to restart the session. And when you're using Google Colab, it's not running the code on your computer. It's showing you the code that's running on some other computer, and it has to restart that one and reconnect. So that's the first step. We're installing and upgrading. We're getting Google's API for Python and a couple things for authentication. And the last one there is Pinecone. And you can collapse that output if you want to. So the next section is just importing all of the required libraries that we're going to use. IO, the first one there, is used to create the PDF file. I'm still fairly new to Python. I'm much more used to JavaScript and having all of these things just included in JavaScript in like the core library language. But with Python, you have to like piecemeal and add all these packages together to build what you need. So IO is for the PDF. Requests is to send the HTTP request. Then we got a few from Google there that we're using to authenticate, pull data from the API, and then Pinecone. And so then you take your API key and declare a couple variables. And that first section is just importing and declaring variables. It's not going to actually run or change anything other than the environment variables. And you can see those if you want. Bottom left here. If I would open that first, this was empty. And then once I ran that block, these three values got defined into the runtime in variables. So now that I have that on that far, I put the name of a folder ID here from Google Docs. If you have a folder that you want to process, just grab any Google Drive folder that has some kind of PDF in it. I had one ready. Yeah, here we go. So I'm using this folder currently. It has 2 of my blog posts saved as a Google Doc with all the images, so I can test the multimodal part of it, right? And then I also have that PDF. So the script that I'm using, it looks for Google Docs and turns them into a PDF to upload to Pinecone. And so what you want to do is pick any Google Drive folder of yours and grab this ID for the URL. It's after folders / and then grab the rest of that and put it into Colab right there for the folder ID. And you probably got to change yours to example assistant right here for the assistant name, because I called mine g.chat. So once you want to rerun that, because I ran mine with my folder ID, and I don't think you all input the folder ID in there yet when you ran. Lastly, once you have all that set up, then we're actually going to authenticate and create the Pinecone assistant. So the first line here, it says Pinecone, here's the API key, and it tries to look up the assistant. Assistant equals PC or Pinecone, and then it's looking for an assistant by that name. It'll print found assistant. Otherwise, it creates it. And this way, you can rerun the exact same block of code. It works on the first time and every time after that. If you try to create the assistant and you say create it called example assistant, it works the first time and then it's going to fail the second, third one because there's already an assistant with that name. So you can either have one function to create and the second one to, update, and then you got to think about which one to run, or you just do it this way, and every time it's either going to create it or just look up and use the existing one. So that's all that's going on there.
Did you give your Google Drive permissions to delete. I guess I'll learn now. See, edit, create, and delete all of your Google Drive files.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, thank you for mentioning that. I meant to call that out. So when you use Google Colab, just to be able to like enable those libraries, you do have to authorize all of those permissions, but then it's only going to do the ones that your code is using, right?
Yeah.
And so you don't want to just copy some random code online and click allow and let somebody else's code have access to your readback. I'm walking through showing you what every line does, and there's nothing malicious in here. If you don't want to use your Google account or you're not, that's fine. But you would definitely want to be a lot more cautious copying a random Google Colab notebook that you found online and clicking allow on that one, because this is going to loop through a single Google Drive folder and upload all of that data to your Pinecone assistant. What if it looped through all of your Google Drive, all folders, and sent it to somebody else's API, to their, so it's totally possible. You're right to question that. In this case, though, it doesn't have granular permissions when you use Google Colab, so it's either all or nothing that you're given it access to delete all files like that. When you do it through the API, if you create a project in Google and you define the scopes, you can make it really granular. And then you could create an API key that can only update or only do one folder or however you want to configure it. All right, so we're almost there. I want to go to my Pinecone assistant and delete the files I uploaded already, because I've done this and I think we're about to do the last step and re-upload files that I've already done. Yeah, so let me get rid of that one.
Sorry, could you quickly re-mention how you added your folder path?
Yeah, so pick any Google Drive folder, grab the URL here, the last part of it after folder /, and then just paste that on block number 2 under importing the libraries and setting up the environment. And then you might have to rerun that block if you've not already done. Okay, so I just deleted the extra files that I had there on my assistant. The only one that it has now is the Office PDF. And so I'm going to run the last block here, number 4, and that loops through all of the files in the folder that you use for your folder ID. It looks for ones that are Google Docs, like not a sheet or a slide, but an actual doc. And then it converts them, it downloads the raw data and saves it as a PDF file. And the raw data and an actual file are two different things. The data is only the contents without a name and a file extension and all that. And so that's what that .io Python library does. That's taking the raw data that's in memory and turning it into an actual file. And then that gets uploaded to Pinecone. So it looks like that completed successfully. And there it is. You can see it, 2 files just got added and it says they're processing. So the server has received them. It has the entire file. It's not still uploading. The whole file is there, but it hasn't been vectorized, right? It's not turned into a vector embedding, so it's not quite ready for the AI to answer questions on yet. And if I refresh, still processing. So yeah, it can take a minute or 2 depending on the size of the file. The 2 examples I have here are like 8 or 10 minute long blog posts, so they're going to take a minute. But we were able to upload the files through the API from a totally other website, right? And we've seen how to ask the questions now from the terminal and from a REST API client, and now how to do it from Python. So you've got all the pieces to start building on top of and make your own app where you can chat with it through a website, through a mobile app, through your own desktop application if you want to use it and upload mobile files. So tons of use cases and lots of different ways to start integrating with it. And that's kind of what I wanted to show today, is to get you all started, multiple different kind of angles or approaches for it, and then build on top of one of those. So does anybody have any ideas of where you would take this next? Are you more interested in the REST API side or Python, and any use cases or ideas in mind?
Or upload my books
Books, yeah.
so I can remember where it writes and see.
Cool.
I just an experiment and just seeing what it can answer.
Yeah. I'll probably use it to give myself like refresher notebooks of previous courses with the notes that I've taken, work at old slides from old classes, review things.
Cool. Yeah, something I was working on building recently is a job that scans incoming emails. Lots of filters on it because I don't want to waste tokens and having it like read spam emails. I'm never going to ask it a question about that, right? So it only looks for emails that are either from coworkers or somebody. If I've already replied on that thread, obviously I'm interested if I replied, So there's a bunch of different filters, but then once it realizes this email is worth scanning, then it sends that out to the assistant. And so it's an assistant that can answer questions about all of my important work emails without it being flooded with spam too. Awesome. Well, I appreciate everyone coming out. Any questions, thoughts, ideas for the next workshop, feedback? Yeah,
Should use I about this for your putting quick.
sure. Yeah, the last one there is the central Discord group. Well, that's cool. We actually got through everything this time. I think last time I planned a little too much and we didn't get through all of it. And the other thing that slowed it down last time was running the AI and Docker and everything locally. So the specs of your laptop really matter. Whereas today everything's in the cloud, so it's a lot easier and you could do it on your phone probably. But yeah, this was fun. Appreciate everyone coming out. This is going to be monthly-ish. It's not exactly monthly because I would never try to do an event here at the same time as the FSU game and probably not a fan. It's like right by the stadium. So I'm kind of avoiding those and trying to keep it close to monthly. I'll set a date to have a new event posted up next week. Cool. Great, dude. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. You don't mind if I get it pictured? I'd like to.